Picture a 13-year-old girl standing outside the razor wire of a state prison. That girl was me, waiting to visit my dad, and I remember feeling shackled. Looking back, I recall the pain and embarrassment I felt as a young girl. I feel that on a visceral level. I will never forget the sound of those doors slamming shut behind me, the smell of steel I could taste in my throat, the endless waiting in a stark, dismal room that echoed with the slightest noise. For 15 years, this was my experience as I visited a man I loved. My dad's mother, Grandma Annie, would often remind me, "Your past doesn't define you. Your past prepares you." I had no idea then how true those words would be. I teach yoga, and a few years ago, my mentor challenged me to go back to my wounds. I was ready. I volunteered to lead a 200-hour yoga teacher certification course for 10 women incarcerated inside the Utah State Prison. The civil rights activist, Angela Davis, said, "Prisons do not disappear social problems. They disappear human beings." I knew from years of watching people respond to my dad that it was true. So I was going back there to see people, to really see them, and to serve them. Believing that my past had prepared me, I believed I could make a difference. Going back in, however, all the old feelings returned. My stomach was in knots. My legs were shaking. Those doors slammed shut behind me, and there was that familiar smell. Both the air and my spirit grew heavy as I second-guessed myself and my grandmother. Inside a correctional facility, this is the closest thing you get to a yoga studio. My heart skipped a beat when I saw this sign, Gym and Recreation. Was it possible that I was stepping into a place of recreation? I walked into the prison gym. I sat down on my mat, shaking and unsure of myself. As one by one in they came, the women I would be working with. They unrolled their mats, sat down, and I looked into their eyes. They with their pain, and me with mine. I took a deep breath, and immediately I felt my body soften and my fears fell away, and all I saw was 10 beautiful women in front of me. I don't know what I expected. Sure, they had a few more tattoos, but they were very much like me. For the next 14 months in our yoga training, we worked together. We laughed and we cried together. We dug deep to put the past and its shackles behind us. The women started seeing their time in prison as purposeful and got excited about the work they could do here and now. They started seeing themselves as whole, not broken, and then they started looking for people to serve. This is Ferosa, a tiny, powerful woman who is serving a life sentence. The women say she does her time well. In yoga terms, we would say she's living her dharma, her life's purpose. Ferosa is turning a life sentence into a legacy. She's hopeful that she'll get out one day. But while she's in confinement, she has found freedom by practicing and teaching yoga and embracing its power. She often speaks about hope and about choice, the choice she has in any moment to be present, to be aware of her breath, and aware of the one thing she can control, her internal monologue. While she lives in physical confinement, she lives there with joyful purpose. In her words, "I'm living on purpose." The seeds of this training are taking root. The women are kinder and gentler with each other. Our students are hungry for more yoga, and now that the inmates are teaching the classes, 60 to 80 women show up, and they keep coming back for the warmth and compassion that comes from women in the same situation as them. Our students refer to the gym as their safe place, their church, a place that has become crucial for their mental health, a place that affirms their value. Ferosa is helping her students take yoga off the mat and out into the prison population. One woman came back to us with the story of giving one of the inmates, a new inmate, one of her towels, a true act of kindness for someone who had come in with nothing. She came back saying, "I'm changing. This crazy yoga stuff is changing me." Yoga is also impacting the prison staff. When we think of correctional officers, we might think of them as coming from the outside. But the officers will tell you, "I'm doing time too." The officers are shackled. Correctional officers struggle with depression, PTSD, and suicide rates much higher than many other occupations. Last year, the Utah Department of Corrections lost 4 officers to suicide. Our women who are incarcerated have created a mindfulness program for the prison staff. They hope to inspire their jailers to truly become peace officers. One hot day in a yoga class, a particularly tough officer let down her guard and brought the women water. This small, tender act from an officer to inmates blew their minds, and it lifted their spirits. It gave them a glimpse of what was possible. The officers are noticing that the entire prison environment before, during, and after yoga is more calm. They're starting to see and value these women as human beings and not just numbers to be counted, problems to be solved, or criminals to control. Ferosa is working with us to get her advanced certification, and soon she will be leading her own trainings inside the prison. While she's still inside those walls, her students will bring her teachings out with them to their families, to their neighbors, and that's you, by the way, and they will make a difference in their community. I believe her impact will be felt out here. I went back to prison to serve, but in doing so, I became free. Ferosa and the women in the program are wonderful teachers for me. My work with them has freed me from the shame and shackles I felt as a young girl. I'm now free to talk about that time in my life and about my dad. Our past does prepare us. My Grandma Annie was right. Thank you.